In this mini clip, we'll be discussing inequalities. While we answer this question together, you will be solving a similar problem on your own using the same technique. The question reads, on what intervals is x times x plus 2 times x minus 5 less than 0 satisfied? What this question is really asking us to do is to find all the possible values of x that make this inequality less than 0 or negative. To solve for these values of x, we first need to find all the critical values of this expression. To find these critical values, we just need to find out at what values of x does the left-hand side of this inequality equal 0. Since this expression is already in factored form, it's going to be very easy to find these critical points. We have three terms multiplied together. X, all times x plus 2, times x minus 5. If one of these terms is equal to 0, our entire expression will be equal to 0, because 0 times any number is always 0. So our critical values will be when x equals 0, because this first term will equal 0, when x is equal to negative 2, because this will make our second term equal to 0, and also when x is equal to 5, since our third term will equal 0 when x is equal to 5. So our critical points occur when x is equal to negative 2, 0, or positive 5. Now we need these critical points to find our intervals. Because we have three critical points, we're actually going to have 4 intervals. As we solve the question, it will become evident as to why we need to have these intervals. Our first interval will be anything less than our first critical point, negative 2. So we will have x less than negative 2. Our second interval will be between our first two critical points, negative 2 and 0. So we'll have negative 2 less than x less than 0. Our third interval will be between our second critical point and third critical point. 0 less than x less than 5. And lastly, our fourth interval will be anything greater than our third critical point, x greater than 5. I would now like you to find the critical points and intervals for the question you are given. Here's the answer you should have got. Coming back to our question, now that we have found our 4 intervals, we're going to create a chart that will help us solve this question. In the first column, we have our 4 intervals listed. Along the top, we have the left-hand side of our original inequality, which is in factored form, and each one of the terms being multiplied. So we have x, x plus 2, and x minus 5. Let's begin to fill out our chart. Along the first row, we need to find a value that is less than negative 2. Let's say negative 5. You can use any number that is less than negative 2. When substituting this value into x, so substituting negative 5 in for x, we will get a negative answer. I'm going to indicate this by writing a negative in this spot here. We're going to do the same thing for this column. We're going to substitute negative 5 in for x. Negative 5 plus 2 will give us a negative answer. Same thing for this column. Negative 5 minus 5 will give us a negative answer. To To solve whether or not this last column is positive or negative, we need to simply multiply the signs of the previous three columns. Since here we have x times x plus 2 times x minus 5. We know that when we have a value less than negative 2, our x will be negative, our x plus 2 is also negative, as well as x minus 5. So we have three negative numbers being multiplied together in this last column. A negative times a negative will give us a positive, and a positive times a negative will give us an overall negative answer. We're going to do the same thing for the remaining rows. For the second row, we need to find a value between negative 2 and 0. So let's choose negative 1. Substituting negative 1 in for x, we get a negative answer. Negative 1 plus 2 will give us a positive answer. Negative 1 minus 5 gives us a negative answer. And again, to find out what sign our last column would be, we just need to multiply the previous three columns. A negative times a positive will give us a negative answer, times a negative number will give us a positive answer. Moving along to the third row. A value between 0 and 5, let's say 1. Substituting 1 in here, we have a positive answer. 1 plus 2 will give us a positive answer. 1 minus 5 will give us a negative answer. A positive times a positive gives us a positive answer, times a negative will give us an overall negative answer. Our last row, we need to choose a value greater than 5. Let's say 6. Our first column will be positive, as well as our second. 6 minus 5 also gives us a positive answer. Now, three answers that are positive, once multiplied together, will also give us a positive answer. I would now like you to create a chart similar to this for the question you are given, and to fill in all the rows. Here's how your chart should look like. Now remember, we want to find the intervals of x when x times x plus 2 times x minus 5 is less than 0, or when this whole expression will give us a negative answer. Well, if we look at our last column in our chart here, we have our expression x times x plus 2 times x minus 5. And we realize that when we have a value of x less than negative 2, we had a negative answer. So this is one of our intervals for x. As well, looking at our third row, we also got a negative answer for our left-hand side of our inequality when x was within the range of 0 and 5. So this is also a solution for our question. So now we just need to combine these two intervals together. Therefore, the inequality is satisfied when x is less than negative 2, or when 0 is less than x less than 5. I would now like you to find the final solution for the question you are given. This should be your final statement.